Think Texas is still the land of opportunity for home buyers in 2025? Think again. Property taxes that would make California blush, insurance companies literally fleeing the state, and housing bubbles bigger than a Dallas Cowboys stadium. The Texas dream has turned into a nightmare, and these 10 cities are ground zero for the collapse. From Austin's suburbs where tech workers are getting foreclosed on, to coastal towns where you literally cannot get insurance at any price. Buying in these places right now could be your biggest financial mistake of the decade. So let's count down the 10 worst cities to buy a home in Texas in 2025. And trust me, number 1 will shock you. Hit that subscribe button because you need to see this data before you make any moves. Starting our countdown at number 10, Dallas, the big D, where everything's supposed to be bigger, including your mortgage payment. Dallas has long been the crown jewel of Texas real estate. But 2025 is telling a different story. The median home price here has hit $425,000, while the median household income sits at just $58,000. Do the math, that's a 7.3 price-to-income ratio, which puts homeownership out of reach for most working families. But here's what makes Dallas particularly brutal: the property taxes. Texas has no state income tax, which sounds great until you realize they fund everything through property taxes instead. In Dallas County, you're looking at an effective rate of 2.52%. That means on a $425,000 home, you're paying over $10,700 per year just in property taxes. That's nearly $900 a month before you even make your mortgage payment. And then there's insurance. Dallas sits smack in the middle of Tornado Alley and Hailstorm Central. Insurance companies are jacking up premiums by 20 to 30% annually, with some homeowners seeing their policies double or even triple. One hailstorm can total your roof, and good luck finding an insurer willing to write a new policy after a claim. Here's the kicker. Dallas was supposed to be the beneficiary of all that California exodus money, but the migration wave has peaked. Inventory is starting to pile up, with homes sitting on the market 15% longer than last year. The writing's on the wall. Dallas's hot streak is cooling fast. Fun fact, Dallas has more shopping centers per capita than any other major city in America. Unfortunately, in 2025, you might be doing more window shopping than house shopping. Number 9, Houston, where they say everything's bigger, including the flood damage to your home's foundation. Houston looks affordable on paper. Median home price around $320,000, median income around $54,000. Not terrible, right? Wrong. Because what they don't tell you is that buying a home in Houston is like playing Russian roulette with Mother Nature. This city floods. Not sometimes, regularly. Harvey was just the preview. Houston gets hit with major flooding events every few years, and climate change is making them worse. The city is literally sinking. Subsidence from groundwater pumping combined with rising sea levels means parts of Houston drop by 2 inches per year. Insurance companies know this. That's why flood insurance premiums have gone through the roof, with some homeowners paying $5,000, $8,000 annually just for flood coverage. And here's the scary part. Several major insurers have stopped writing new homeowners policies in Harris County altogether. Good luck refinancing when your insurance company won't renew. The job market isn't helping either. Houston's economy still revolves around oil and gas, and that sector's volatility keeps wages stagnant while housing costs creep up. Population growth has slowed to a crawl as people wise up to the flood risk and insurance nightmare. But Houston does hold one impressive record. It's home to the world's largest medical center. Unfortunately, you might need it after dealing with the stress of flood damage and insurance claims. Now before we continue, let me ask you this. Are you seeing these same warning signs in your local market? Drop a comment below with your city, and let me know if you're dealing with crazy property taxes or insurance nightmares too. And if you're finding this breakdown valuable, smash that like button. It really helps the algorithm share this with other people who need to see these warning signs. Number 8, Austin. The city that used to keep it weird, but now just keeps it unaffordable. Austin was the pandemic darling. The tech boom town where California refugees brought their Silicon Valley salaries and bid up everything in sight. Well, the party's over, and Austin is dealing with one hell of a hangover. Median home prices peaked at over $550,000, nearly double the national average. Meanwhile, median household income sits at around $78,000. That's a 7-1 ratio, which puts Austin in seriously overvalued territory. Even worse, those California tech salaries that justified the high prices, they're evaporating faster than morning dew in Texas heat. Tesla, Meta, and dozens of startups have announced major layoffs. The very people who drove Austin's housing boom are now getting pink slips, and guess what happens to housing demand when your highest-paid buyers disappear? Inventory is exploding. Homes are sitting on the market 40% longer than they did 2 years ago. Price cuts are becoming the norm, not the exception. I'm seeing listings that have been reduced 3 or 4 times and still can't find buyers. The rental market is collapsing too. All those investors who bought properties thinking they'd rent to tech workers, they're competing for a shrinking pool of tenants who can actually afford $2,500 for a 1-bedroom apartment. Austin's still got great food and music, but unless you're buying barbecue by the pound instead of houses by the square foot, this market is serving up some serious indigestion. Number 7, San Antonio, where the Alamo isn't the only thing under siege, so is housing affordability. San Antonio has been one of the fastest-growing metros in Texas, with people drawn by relatively lower costs and that famous Riverwalk charm. But here's the problem. Wages haven't kept pace with the population boom. The median household income in San Antonio is just $52,000, one of the lowest among major Texas cities. Meanwhile, median home prices have jumped to $285,000 and climbing. That might not sound terrible compared to Austin or Dallas, but when your income is $20,000 lower, that affordability advantage disappears fast. Property taxes are crushing families here too. Bexar County's effective rate of 2.49% means you're paying over $7,000 annually on a median-priced home. For a family making $52,000, that's nearly 15% of their gross income just on property taxes. The building boom has created massive oversupply in the suburbs. Drive through developments on the north side and you'll see spec homes sitting empty, builders offering incentives and price-reduced signs everywhere. When there's more supply than demand, buyers hold the cards, and they're not playing. Crime is becoming a factor too. San Antonio's violent crime rate is above the national average, and that's starting to affect buyer confidence in certain neighborhoods. Nothing kills property values faster than safety concerns. Here's a fun fact. San Antonio is home to the first Whole Foods in Texas. Too bad most residents can't afford to shop there after making their mortgage payments. Number 6, El Paso, the Sun City, where your home value might be setting along with that desert sun. El Paso sits right on the Mexican border, and while that gives it cultural richness and amazing Mexican food, it also creates unique challenges for the housing market. The median household income here is just $47,000, the lowest of any major Texas city. Meanwhile, home prices have crept up to around $200,000, which might sound cheap until you do the income math. Job growth in El Paso lags way behind other Texas metros. The economy relies heavily on military installations, border trade, and manufacturing, none of which are driving the kind of wage growth needed to support rising housing costs. Young professionals are leaving for Dallas, Austin, and Houston, creating a brain drain that's hard to reverse. Border proximity creates perception issues too. While El Paso itself is quite safe, national headlines about border security concerns affect investor confidence and buyer demand. It's not fair, but it's reality, and reality drives real estate prices. Homes are sitting on the market longer here than almost anywhere else in Texas. Sellers are having to make price concessions, and many are just pulling their listings and waiting for better market conditions. The area does have some advantages. Fort Bliss is a major economic driver, and the cost of living is still relatively low. But for homebuyers looking at appreciation potential and market liquidity, El Paso is showing warning signs that are hard to ignore. Fun fact, El Paso is actually safer than New York City with a lower crime rate. But unfortunately, perception often matters more than reality in real estate. We're halfway through our countdown, and if you're starting to see a pattern here, rising prices, stagnant wages, insurance nightmares, you're paying attention. The Texas housing market is sending some serious warning signals, but wait until you see our top 5. These cities have problems that go way beyond typical market cycles. Make sure you're subscribed because you need to see which coastal Texas city made our top 2. Number 5, Corpus Christi, where the Gulf breeze comes with a side of housing market problems that'll make your head spin. Corpus sits right on the Gulf Coast, which means hurricane risk is always hanging over the market like a storm cloud. But it's not just the storms, it's the insurance nightmare they create. Homeowners' insurance premiums here have skyrocketed, with many policies doubling in cost over the past 3 years. Flood insurance is mandatory for most properties, adding another $2,000, $4,000 annually to your housing costs. Some coastal areas can't get coverage at any price, making those properties essentially uninsurable and unsellable. The local economy revolves around oil refining and port activities, which creates boom-bust cycles that keep wages volatile. Median household income hovers around $55,000, while median home prices have jumped to $240,000. Factor in those astronomical insurance costs, and homeownership becomes a luxury many can't afford. Hurricane Harvey gave everyone a preview of what coastal flooding looks like, and insurance companies haven't forgotten. Several major insurers have stopped writing new policies in coastal counties, creating a coverage crisis that's only getting worse. Property crime rates in some neighborhoods are among the highest in Texas, which doesn't help property values or buyer confidence. When you combine crime concerns with natural disaster risks, you get a market that's struggling to attract long-term buyers. Corpus does have beautiful beaches and great fishing. Just don't count on your home appreciation to pay for that boat. Number 4, Waco, where the fixer-upper trend created a real estate bubble that's about to pop like a piñata. Thanks to a certain HGTV power couple, Waco became the poster child for home renovation and flipping. Chip and Joanna made it look easy, and investors flooded the market thinking they'd struck renovation gold. Well, reality has a way of humbling even the most confident flippers. The median home price in Waco has jumped to around $185,000, which sounds reasonable until you realize the median household income is only $43,000. That's a 4.3 price-to-income ratio in a city with limited job opportunities and economic diversity. All those renovation projects created oversupply of flipped homes that are now competing with each other. Drive through East Waco, and you'll see house after house with price-reduced signs sitting empty for months. The flipping frenzy has cooled, leaving behind overpriced inventory and unrealistic seller expectations. Crime is a serious issue in Waco. The violent crime rate is nearly double the national average, and property crime is a constant concern. That HGTV charm disappears quickly when you're worried about break-ins and neighborhood safety. Foreclosure filings are ticking upward as reality sets in for over-leveraged investors and homeowners who bought at peak prices. When the market correction comes, and it's coming, Waco could see some serious price drops. Fun fact, Waco is home to Dr. Pepper and Baylor University. Too bad neither can sweeten the bitter taste of this housing market. Number 3, Lubbock, where the Red Raiders might be the only thing not retreating from this housing market. Lubbock's economy depends heavily on agriculture, cotton farming, and Texas Tech University. That's not exactly a recipe for economic diversity or wage growth. The median household income sits around $50,000 while home prices have crept up to $170,000. And that's before you factor in some of the highest property tax rates in the state. Agricultural economies are notoriously volatile. One bad crop year, one shift in commodity prices, and the local job market takes a hit. That kind of economic uncertainty makes lenders nervous and keeps buyer demand unstable. Texas Tech helps stabilize the rental market, but it also creates a ceiling on home values. Why would a young professional buy a $170,000 house in Lubbock when they could rent and have the flexibility to move to Dallas or Austin for better career opportunities? Foreclosure filings have been creeping upward, particularly in neighborhoods that got overbuilt during the previous housing boom. Sellers are discovering that what goes up in real estate doesn't always stay up, especially in markets with limited economic drivers. Insurance costs are rising here too, thanks to Lubbock's position in Tornado Alley and hailstorm territory. West Texas weather can be brutal, and insurance companies are pricing policies accordingly. Lubbock does have some things going for it. Texas Tech brings energy and cultural activities, and the cost of living is still relatively low. But for buyers looking at long-term appreciation and market stability, the warning signs are hard to ignore. Number 2, Galveston, the island city where your house might literally be underwater, both figuratively and literally. Galveston sits on a barrier island in the Gulf of Mexico, which makes it incredibly vulnerable to hurricanes, flooding, and storm surge. Insurance companies know this, which is why getting homeowners coverage here is like trying to find a unicorn, rare and expensive. Many properties can't get private insurance at any price. They're forced into the state's FAIR plan, which offers minimal coverage at maximum cost. Flood insurance is mandatory and expensive, often running $3,000, $5,000 annually for coastal properties. Hurricane Ike in 2008 was a wake-up call, but Harvey in 2017 was a reality check. The storm surge and flooding devastated the island, and many properties still haven't fully recovered. Insurance payouts were slow, contractors were overwhelmed, and property values took a beating that they're still recovering from. The local economy depends on tourism and the port. both of which are vulnerable to weather events and economic downturns. When hurricanes hit, tourism stops, cruise ships get rerouted, and the local economy takes a double hit. Population has been stagnating or even declining as people wise up to the risks. Young families are choosing more inland locations where they don't have to worry about evacuating every hurricane season. Median home prices around $245,000 might seem reasonable, but factor in insurance costs, flood risk, and limited resale market, and Galveston becomes a very expensive gamble. The island does have historic charm and beautiful beaches. Just make sure you've got good flood insurance and a solid evacuation plan. Number 1. The Austin suburbs, Round Rock, Pflugerville, Georgetown, and Cedar Park, where the American dream went to die in a McMansion. These suburbs represent the biggest housing bubble in Texas, maybe in the entire country. During the pandemic, tech workers with California salaries bid up everything in sight, creating a speculative frenzy that divorced home prices from local economic reality. In Round Rock, median home prices soared from $320,000 in 2019 to over $520,000 by 2022. Pflugerville saw similar jumps. Georgetown, which used to be a sleepy retirement community, suddenly had $600,000 tract homes. The problem? Local median incomes didn't budge much past $80,000. Now reality is setting in. Tech layoffs have decimated the buyer pool that drove those insane price increases. Homes that used to sell in days are sitting on the market for months. Price cuts are everywhere. 10%, 15%, sometimes 20% off peak asking prices. Property taxes are crushing families. Some homeowners are seeing annual tax bills of $12,000, $15,000 on homes they bought thinking they were getting a good deal. That's $1,250 per month just in property taxes. The investor exodus is brutal. All those out-of-state investors who bought rental properties sight unseen, they're trying to unload them now, flooding the market with inventory and competing with each other to find buyers. Here's the kicker. These suburbs were supposed to be the safe bet, the family-friendly alternative to expensive Austin proper. Instead, they became ground zero for the biggest housing speculation bubble in Texas history. So there you have it, the 10 worst cities to buy a home in Texas in 2025. From Dallas's property tax nightmare to Austin's suburban bubble burst, from Houston's flood risks to Galveston's insurance crisis, the Lone Star State is showing some serious warning signs for homebuyers. Texas may look like the promised land from the outside, but dig into the numbers, and you'll find high taxes, high insurance costs, climate risks, and unsustainable price growth that's pricing out the very people who made Texas attractive in the first place. The American dream isn't dead, but it's definitely on life support in these 10 cities. If you're thinking about buying in any of these markets, do your homework, crunch the real numbers including taxes and insurance, and maybe consider waiting to see how this market correction plays out. Coming up next week, I'll be breaking down the flip side, the best places in Texas where buying still makes sense, and the top 5 states where the American dream is still alive and affordable. Make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss it. And drop a comment below. Are you seeing these same warning signs in your market? I read every single comment. Until next time, keep discovering the nation, one data point at a time.